let's pass the mic around and just see what kind of questions are on your mind right now so that we make this part as interactive and as relevant as possible.
Hi. Is it on? Yeah? Okay. What happened in me when you were talking was the thinking about imagining. The collective imagination manifests and creates the world we're in.
Yes.
So that just stayed with me as the key thing.
Okay.
Like you said, to be able to imagine these things, that we're so scared of and we think are improbable or whatever.
Good.
I don't have a question on it, but
okay. But I will expound upon that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else, the things that are on your mind or questions that you have? Yes. And give us your name, too.
Hello, my name's Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
I'm from Australia.
Uh-huh.
What I'd like to know is where we can find out more and how we participate more to share that message and what's actually happening and places where we can connect with community so that we can stay inspired.
Great. Okay. We'll do that too. In the rear too. Let's not miss him.
Hi, I'm Eben.
Hi, Evan.
And I'm interested in how you stay energized, inspired, and move yourself through the world in what can just be this onslaught of debilitating news that we get on a daily basis.
Okay. Good question. All right.
Good morning. My name's Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
I've always, since I can remember, been like, it's all vision, it's all wonderful. And then the world has taught me otherwise.
Uh-huh.
And so my question to you is have you always been this incredible, moving, dynamic, divine feminine speaker, evoking passion and joy? When has it always been with you? Where was the process of transformation? Something like that, because I'm looking for a bigger voice.
Okay. All right. Good questions.
Hi, I'm Faye.
Hi, Faye.
My work is publishing short books with vision of the future for inspiring, and I'd just love to learn from you more about ways of painting, of presenting that vision to fire people's hearts. I loved what you quoted from Michael Beckwith about pain pushes and vision pulls.
Yes.
Pulling to the future. How can we really paint that?
Okay. Great.
Thanks. I'm Bill, and I got the impression that you have a church in Santa Cruz, and I'd like to learn more about that.
Okay. Yes, and I do, and yes, I will.
I'm interested in your perspective on the creative tension between being bold about visioning for the future and a little bit the baby with the bathwater syndrome. There's a lot of pride, for example, in the indigenous cultures around their past, and there's the potential for a reification around celebrating old ways and not being open to possibilities that keep those cultures alive and yet moving forward. And I think some useful language around that, some useful conversation around that. So we're keeping the spirit of the best alive into the future, or however you would frame that. I'm interested in your perspective.
Okay, that's a good question. We got one more.
Hi, my name's David. How do we walk together when I, as a white person, am here and there's not people of color here? How do we all walk together? So where do we meet together because I come from a place where there's indigenous people, and that's primarily, and we're trying to work on reconciliation with the people. So I just like your perspective.
Okay,
Miigwech.
great.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm Juanita, and I've worked with children ages 1 to 5th grade for many years, teaching mindfulness, meditation, yoga, etc. And these young children come in with this pure spirituality and imagination and creativity. And I would say by the age of 3, even younger, we as adults change that. We program them, and we take away their innate ability to be where we're all trying to get. And they already have it.
Okay. I'd like to respond to these, and I don't want to just talk at you. Okay, so I'm going to pause sometimes and open it up for responses back, and also feel free in this kind of a format that if I'm saying something that you either don't understand or you want me to elaborate on it, like right then, let's not wait. You know, let's get into it. You know, now. So let me start with this concept about vision, since that's come up a lot. We are always holding a vision of something. It's just a vision of what? As has been discussed throughout the whole conference here, is that we're moving away from a Newtonian model of we're just some kind of matter that's sitting there and waiting for things to happen at us or to happen to us. But we're in this constant co-creative process where literally the observed and the observer are the same thing. What's being observed is being created out of the consciousness of the observer. It's done unto us as we believe or as we see. This is really important because it isn't just that things happen and then we have a viewpoint about it in the past. We have preconceived ideas, and those preconceived ideas shape what we see. We literally have a precognitive commitment where we cannot perceive things that we have not created the space in our consciousness to imagine is possible. So if we don't think it's possible, we don't see it. We live life at the level of our narrative. This is not the same thing as the story. The story is after the fact. It's the conclusion that we have come to that we may continuously project into the future. But our life in real time is being narrated. I want you to feel that. We're narrators, so at every moment of every day, we are interpreting what's happening. What happens to us are not the facts of what's happened, it's how we name it. It's how we name it. Have any of you ever, in the room, have any of you been raised with siblings? Like in the same household at the same time? Okay. Have you ever actually wondered if you were really raised in the same house, with the same parents? Were you at the same dinners? You know, really? Both sitting like right there, all sitting right there, but completely different experiences of life. Are you with me? So, what healing becomes about is changing the narrative Healing isn't changing the facts of what's happened. It's changing how we've named it. So if I go into recovery, it could be a 12-step program, it could be surviving sexual abuse, it could be some kind of trauma, something or whatever. You can't unring the bell. You can't unring the bell. But the difference is the story that you tell yourself about what it means. So I like to say sometimes, you make a God out of anything that you let define you. You make a God out of it. So we're making gods out of people, places, and things because we are allowing them to define us. So the wonderful thing about this narration is that we get to predetermine what it is that we see. We cultivate the consciousness. You will walk in to whatever it is that you feel. I remember the days when I was angry. I was angry a lot. Okay. I had a good mask, but I was angry a lot. And I don't think I've ever said this in public, but I had my first test for bleeding ulcers at 14. It turns out I didn't have them, but I had my first test at 14. Okay, I was pissed. I was pissed at a lot of stuff. Not the least of which was growing up gay in the Pentecostal church in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And being black and a woman and, and I'm from LA. The city went up in flames, I think, 3 times between 10 and 25. It was just a lot. It was just anybody that lived that time on the tail end of the baby boom. There was just a lot. And there were all of these messages about why it shouldn't be me. There's just all these messages. And, I would like to think it was courage, but it wasn't. It was just survival. Honestly, I was fighting for my life. And if that meant the whole world had to change, so be it. But when you're in the house and it's burning down, you don't think of it so much as courage. You're doing whatever it is that you have to do. I'd like to quote Audre Lorde, who's one of my sheroes. She was a very out African-American lesbian poet, actually poet laureate of the state of New York. And I believe she died in 84, around age of 58 or something like that. And this one particular quote is by my bed, and it's also at my office. She said, "When I dare to be powerful, when I use my strength in the service of my vision, it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." I like that definition of power. Using my strength in the service of my vision. And when you do that, it becomes less and less important whether you are afraid. Okay? So what is your vision? Everybody has one. If your vision's Murphy's Law, that whatever is going to go wrong is going to go wrong, that's what you get to experience, yes? We know this. I find almost everything that I teach, if you look at it from the standpoint of human development, it becomes so much simpler. If you're teaching a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, And let's just say they're changing schools. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's gonna like me, and I don't have the right clothes, and they're gonna do this, and what's gonna happen, and you already know. If you walk to school feeling all that, what? That's what's gonna happen. We know this. This is not rocket science. And we're busy trying to get them to have a different picture, have a different vision, have a different possibility. And here's the kicker. I really want you to listen to what I'm saying here. That'll become your experience, regardless of what the facts are. I contend no slave ever got on the freedom train. No slave got on the freedom train. The only people who got on the freedom train were people who already believed they were free. The people who got on the freedom train were people who, in their hearts, were free, never knew a day out of slavery, but in their hearts, they said, what is a free person like me doing unjustly enslaved? I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I'm going to go someplace where people see me as I see me. I'm going to go someplace where some people know I'm as free as I think that I am. Are you with me? Yes. So waiting for the world to give you permission is waiting. It won't happen. You have to show up with the vision. Laws can't make us equal. A law's never made you equal. The only thing that a law can do is validate a pre-existing equality. Sometimes I bemoan the fact that we called it a civil rights movement, because it wasn't a civil rights movement. It was a spiritual rights movement that was redefining our relationship to one another under the eyes of God. And essentially saying, if we really are equal, then all of this other stuff can't be justified. It has no basis. Even what we know of as the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, that's a spiritual manifesto. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That's a spiritual manifesto. Now, we don't have to get into what it actually meant, but the position in which it's coming from is putting forth a bold vision that creates the context that says, this is my justification for moving forward. So if you don't have your own vision, whose vision do you have? If you aren't actively creating your own sense of what's possible, then what's happening? Because everything is energy, things are synergistic. We know that the more people who are in alignment with a certain idea, the more that idea is going to manifest. The bigger, the magnitude, yes? We know that. For whatever reason that I do not understand, these basic fundamental organizing principles that I am talking about, organizing in terms of the way the universe works, we seem to understand them so much better in the negative than we do in the positive. So somehow or another, we don't have any question whatsoever that if you get 100 people together and they're angry and they're bloodthirsty and they want revenge, we don't have any doubt whatsoever in our mind that's a problem. That 100 angry people like that, something's going to go down. And yet somehow we don't seem to believe as equally that 100 really conscious, aware people who are standing in their power, who are emitting high frequency and high vibration, can also impact the collective consciousness around with the same power that the negative can. And I just find it interesting how I will get challenged sometimes on what people will appear to, that's Pollyannish to think that, we can have vision and blah, blah, blah. But if you take it on the other end of the spectrum, if you take it on the other end of the continuum, nobody questions whatsoever.
Even though it's mathematically true.
Even though it's mathematically true. This is what I'm saying. So if it seems too much to believe, just start where you are. Start with what you know. Well, I know this stuff works in the negative. It's all energy, so if it works in the negative, why wouldn't it swing the other way? What is there out there that would prevent it from working the other way? So what I contend is that part of our problem of why we're not seeing more of the world in which we say we want to see is that we're just not being bold enough. We're just not being bold enough. This notion of supply and demand, we hear about it in economic terms. Okay, my undergraduate and my first graduate degree are actually in economics and finance. Supply and demand is an organizing principle in the universe. When there is enough demand for something, it will appear. It will be provided for. Yes? When there's enough demand for really clean energy, we'll have it. Because it's not an impossibility. We just don't have a demand for it yet. Are you with me? So our challenge is to up the demand for oneness. Up the demand for justice. Like, why do we have such a high demand for mass incarceration? I mean, I'm not even going to the politics of that. But you don't end things on the supply side. This is a mistake we keep making over and over again. The war on drugs, the war on poverty, the war on crime. The Rand Corporation, I don't know, about 15 years ago said that all of these wars on nouns and concepts, they don't work. They don't work. We're waging war on something that's just keeping us in the consciousness of it. I remember seeing this. It was a billboard, and it said, "Get involved in crime." I didn't know who put it up. The cops are the criminals. We have to up the demand. The demand for environmental sustainability. The demand for oneness. The demand for the demand for civility. Oh my God. the demand for democracy, if that's what we really believe in. And can you feel how upping the demand is different than complaining about what everybody else is doing? I'm not saying this as a political statement. I'm saying it as an example. Do you remember in 2016, there was this campaign and you saw all of these signs that said, "Love trumps hate"? Do you remember that? Okay. From a consciousness standpoint, that's about the dumbest thing in the world you could do. Like, whose sign is that? Who is it supposed to support? Plastered all on it is the very thing that you're saying you don't want to support. So think about your life and how you organize your life and things that you're doing. How many of us have that? How many of us are walking around essentially with signs that are advertising all what we don't want? Busy spending all of our energy on that. It'll never change then. It'll never change. There has to be a vision in your mind of possibility. I see your hand. Just let me say this one thing. I've been involved in a lot of movements, as a participant and professionally, as an organizer. There isn't a successful movement in the world that wasn't built on vision. The women's movement was not just about how to get from underneath patriarchy. It was about, we're going to stand in our power. We have gifts. We should have freedom, the right to have credit, the right to choose what produces in our body or not. I mean, these very strong gender equality, bedroom by bedroom, boardroom by boardroom, courtroom by courtroom. I'm going somewhere. With the understanding that, yes, when I get up from underneath, it's going to shift everything, and assuming some responsibility for managing that shift and transition, whatever that's going to be, gender roles or whatever. But resistance isn't enough. Resistance isn't enough. Yes.
So on the question of, my name is Mark. The question is, to affect change.
Yes.
Are we preaching to the choir in the sense of, there is a lot of saturation, I would say. Let's just use the category of the left. Let's say the left agrees with the principles of, justice and equality and so forth. And so they're there. What I see is a lot of politicians, when they're running for office, they'll speak to that group in their language to win them over when they're already won over, right? So the question is, from a change perspective, amidst the tribalism that we have, is the way to affect change to keep increasing the volume of one group that isn't being heard, which maybe plays into the tribalism even more, or is it to change the strategy or modify the strategy such that you're actually changing minds among those that actually are not in that choir? And so this is a political strategy question, but when we're talking about change, we're talking about political strategy. And so if we can square that circle.
I understand the question. And 5 minutes left? Okay. I understand the question. What I would say is that part of the challenge that we have here now is that these ones that we say they were like preaching to the choir, we're not standing on our values. Okay? I can appreciate the let's reach out and change hearts and minds. Yes, we should do that. But if the progressives are being as nasty, if they're being just as divisive, if they're being just as othering, if they're being just as dismissive, just as self-righteous, just as holier than thou, and want to just win and obliterate the opposition as much as the ones that they're fighting against, then nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. That at some point we have to stand on the principles that we say that we believe in and actually play a different game. Play a different game. Play a game that reflects the values we say that we have. Okay? Yes.
As an example of that, I live in Kansas, and the Koch brothers are pretty well known there, and they have a thing called Americans for Prosperity. And every time I hear the word, I want to throw up. But there was a meeting between the CEO of the Koch brothers organization and the Kansas ACLU guy. They found common ground to change the American justice system. So the common ground came because someone in Koch Industries had a experience with bad American justice system. And then of course the ACLU works at it all the time. So that common ground, experience by experience, seems to me to be maybe pretty effective.
Exactly. As Martin Luther King Jr. put it, you lose all moral authority with those who can feel your contempt. You lose all moral authority with people who can feel your contempt. So, yes, we have to do the reach across, but if I'm coming with a club, we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere. So I hope you hear the moral of this story, generally speaking, is dare to believe. Start with a vision. A vision. And dream wild. Dream wild. You know, when I was a kid, being gay was a felony in every state. But to dare to dream of one day being able to be legally married, I mean, that's some bold stuff. When you look at all the stuff that's against, don't worry about what it all looks like. Dare to dream and let the synergy of those visions create a bonfire, create a level of demand where it starts to spread like a wildfire. Change doesn't happen from going to the furthest end and bringing them in. It starts with the critical mass, the low-hanging fruit. Who else can you get in this conversation? Who else can you get in this conversation? And take some real action. And it might not be the same thing for every person. So it grows like this, so that those who are on the outer edge become marginalized. Okay. Don't worry so much about the ones on the extreme. That's not your problem. That's kind of heavy lifting, so to speak. Leave that to folks who were prepared to do that heavy lifting, because it's just going to get you caught up. Start where you are and dare to dream a vision. And if you dare to dream a vision, I promise you, opportunities will come up.
What is your wild dream now?
My wild dream now and my vision is that we have, I said it in there, where we have a world in which we really believe that all of us are equal. And if everything that we do, that we're equal to each other, one with the planet, that if we organize around that, it'll be a complete revolution. Yes. And I do have a church. It's in Santa Cruz. It's called Inner Light Ministries. Lots of stuff online. And I'm more than happy to talk to anybody afterwards. But just remember, this is not the time to be depressed. No, it really isn't. It's not the time to be depressed. Now's the time to dream large. Now's the time to see more possibilities. In spite of all the divisiveness that's going on, in my lifetime, I've never seen such engagement. I've never seen so many people involved in the political process and really talking and having passion about a democracy and what does this mean, and realizing that they have to assume responsibility in crafting where it is that it goes. A democracy isn't that we all have to agree. It's that we all got to love it enough to put our best in it and find that place where we can actually manage to live together. You want to join me in that? Yes. Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.